Change doesn't always arrive with fanfare. It rarely bursts in with neon signs or sounding trumpets. Instead, it often begins as a subtle murmur within your own heart and mind, a whispered invitation to grow, to shift, to evolve. Long before the world can perceive a transformation, the first stirrings of change happen in the quiet recesses of your consciousness. Imagine a seed buried beneath fertile soil. At first glance, nothing appears to be happening, but underground, cellular activity ignites. Roots extend, reaching for water. A fragile taproot pushes downward, anchoring itself with determination. Likewise, the beginnings of personal transformation often remain hidden. A fleeting moment of insight, a quiet resolve, a shift in attitude. These inner movements accumulate strength over time, and though they are unseen, they are real, and they are powerful. Consider the smallest shift in perception. Perhaps you wake up one morning and notice the glimmer of gratitude for something you previously overlooked. A favorite song drifting through the air, the comforting warmth of sunlight on your skin, or the steady rhythm of your own breath. That flicker of awareness is the spark of change. It may seem inconsequential at first, but within it lives the potential to reshape your entire outlook. From that moment on, you begin to notice other blessings. A friend's understanding smile, the resilience of a plant sprouting through a crack in the pavement, or the joy of creating something with your hands. These observations may feel trivial, but they are the opening notes of a new symphony in your life. Similarly, the gradual practice of self-compassion can start with a single thought: I deserve kindness. This realization, however slight, can cascade into a profound shift in how you treat yourself and others. Over time, that one thought transforms into actions, setting boundaries, speaking gently to yourself, choosing rest over busyness. The world around you responds in kind, and before you know it, your relationships, work, and creativity begin to flourish in ways you never anticipated. Transformation is cumulative. Just as a drop of water wears away rock over centuries, tiny changes in your daily habits carve new pathways in your brain, forging neural networks that support the person you're becoming. You may not see evidence of this reconstruction immediately. There's no scaffolding or construction noise. But beneath the surface, your mind and spirit are being remodeled, brick by brick. The next time you feel stuck or impatient for change, remember, you are not idle. Something is stirring. Trust the quiet momentum building inside you. Even if no one else can see it yet, you are already in motion, evolving into your next self, one silent revolution at a time. Change is a brave act of self-rebellion. The person you once were, cautious, vigilant, insulated, served a purpose: to keep you safe from harm, rejection, and disappointment. That version of yourself built walls of habit and belief, learned the rules of avoidance, and clung to familiar routines like life preservers in a storm. But now the tides have shifted. The currents pulling you toward growth and discovery have grown stronger than your fear of the unknown. You've outgrown that sheltered self. The protective shell you once wore, crafted from self-doubt, habit, and limiting stories, no longer fits. Each time you lean into a new challenge, you feel the shell crack. Each time you step beyond your comfort zone, you sense the old barriers dissolving. Those familiar defenses once offered security, but today they only hold you back. They say, stay here. Don't risk. Don't change. Yet your heart whispers a different truth. You are meant for more. Releasing an old identity requires courage. It demands that you recognize how deeply you've internalized the narratives that kept you small. I'm not creative. I'm too shy. I don't deserve success. These stories may have protected you from failure or disappointment, but they also prevented you from experiencing your full potential. Now is the time to dismantle them. Observe each limiting thought as it arises, examine it, question its origins, and deliberately choose to let it go. As you shed this outdated self, you may feel a void. That's natural, like stepping into a dark room before the lights come on. Do not be afraid of the emptiness. It is fertile ground, waiting to be sown with new beliefs and fresh aspirations. Plant seeds of possibility. I am capable of learning. I embrace boldness. I trust my inner compass. Tend these new beliefs daily through action. Try something you've never done. Speak a truth you've long hidden, or simply allow yourself to imagine a future you once thought impossible. This process is not a one-time event, but a series of small, deliberate pivots. Each choice to step forward loosens the grip of your former self. With every risk you take, a conversation with a stranger, a creative project begun, a boundary firmly drawn, you further sever ties to old patterns. The familiar fear may whisper, "Go back," but you now have the power to reply, "I am becoming." Bold becoming is not about recklessness. It is about aligning with your highest purpose. It's cultivating a self that responds to life with openness, curiosity, and courage. Today, choose to step beyond what once felt safe. Embrace the exhilarating uncertainty that lies ahead. You have outgrown your old self, and now you are free to become everything you were meant to be. Endings can feel jarring and disorienting. We crave neat resolutions, clear whys, and a roadmap that shows us exactly where to go next. Yet some chapters close without fanfare or explanation. No audible click of a lock, no final curtain call. Instead, we find ourselves standing in the quiet aftermath, wrestling with questions that echo through the hallways of our minds. Why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Where do I go from here? But what if this silence is itself a form of grace? What if endings that come without answers are not mistakes or oversights, but intentional acts of divine closure, an invitation to surrender our need for control and to trust that something greater is at work? Imagine a sculptor chiseling away at a marble block. Each strike of the hammer removes excess stone, revealing the form hidden within. The chips flying off the marble might look like loss, fragments gone forever, but they are necessary sacrifices so that beauty may emerge. In life, endings that arrive without logical explanations can function in the same way. They liberate us from outdated patterns, relationships that no longer serve our growth, and narratives that limit our vision of what's possible. When a friendship fades without conflict, or a job ends without warning, we often search desperately for cause and effect. We replay conversations, scrutinize every decision, and blame ourselves or others. Yet divine closure asks us instead to pause and lean into the mystery. It calls us to consider, what space is opening up in my life now? What new ideas, relationships, or adventures might find room to grow here? Divine closure also reminds us that endings are not purely external events, but internal shifts in consciousness. Sometimes a relationship ends not because the other person changed, but because you've changed. You're no longer the same individual who first walked into that chapter. The ending, then, is a gift. It honors your evolution and sets you free to pursue paths more aligned with your emerging self. To embrace endings as intentional divine moves, begin with acceptance. When closure doesn't arrive in tidy form, resist the urge to fill the silence with anxious speculation. Instead, take a few deep breaths and affirm, "I trust that this ending serves my highest good." Let your mind rest in that trust, even when uncertainty nudges at your heart. Next, look for the hidden openings. What desires or longings have been whispering at the edges of your awareness, ideas you've dismissed as impractical or impossible? Now may be the perfect moment to explore them. With the old door closed, you have both permission and space to knock on new ones. Finally, cultivate gratitude for the journey you've completed. Even if it ended without explanation, it has shaped you, taught you resilience, and prepared you for what comes next. Write a silent thank you note. No need to send it, expressing appreciation for the lessons learned and the love experienced. Acknowledging the past honors its role in your story and paves the way for the chapters yet unwritten. Some endings leave us with more questions than answers, but that uncertainty can be a crucible of transformation. When we choose to interpret those endings as divine closure rather than cosmic oversight, we step into a larger narrative, one in which every door that shuts is, by design, freeing us to step into new rooms of possibility. Trust the process. The universe has a way of moving us toward our truest destinies, even when we can't see the whole puzzle. Divine closure isn't the end of your story. It's the threshold to the life you're truly meant to live. Transformation is never handed to you on a silver platter. It demands a cost, a relinquishing of the familiar, a surrender of comfort, and a willingness to embrace discomfort as your constant companion. Just as a caterpillar must dissolve into liquid form before emerging as a butterfly, you too must be willing to let parts of yourself collapse so that something greater can take flight. Imagine you're climbing a mountain. With each step upward, the air grows thinner, your muscles tremble, and your lungs burn. There is a moment when you must decide. Do you turn around and retreat to the valley's warmth, or do you press onward through the ache? The very act of elevation requires you to trade the ease of the lowlands for the challenge of the ascent. Transformation works the same way. You shed habits that have long defined you, perhaps a steady paycheck in exchange for the uncertainty of a passion project or the security of an old relationship to make space for a new one. These sacrifices sting, but they are the currency you pay to ascend. Discomfort is not a bug in the system. It is the system. When you push your boundaries, whether by learning a new skill, voicing a hard truth, or taking a leap of faith, you inevitably enter a zone of unease. You may feel exposed, vulnerable, or even foolish. You might second-guess yourself, tempted by the siren call of safety, but within that tension lies the very mechanism of growth. Your muscles strengthen under tension. Your character deepens under strain. The friction of discomfort polishes you until you shine. Normalization is key. Rather than viewing sacrifice as a punitive penalty, reframe it as a sacred rite of passage. Each sleepless night spent honing your craft, each awkward conversation where you assert your worth, each moment of solitude in which you confront old insecurities, they are not signs you're on the wrong path. They are the toll booths on the highway to your truest self. Accept them as integral, unavoidable milestones. To journey through sacrifice with grace, cultivate a mindset of gratitude. Celebrate the small victories, the breakthrough after hours of practice, the clarity gained from a difficult conversation, the resilience forged during a lonely season. Keep a journal of these wins so you can look back and see how each sacrifice has propelled you forward, brick by brick. Finally, remember that sacrifice is not about loss alone. It's about exchange. What you give up, the comfort of certainty, the illusion of control, the cocoon of old identities, you trade for vision, freedom, and authenticity. Transformation exacts its price, but the reward is your elevated life. Spacious, vibrant, and entirely your own. Embrace the discomfort, honor the sacrifice, and know that on the other side lies the person you were always meant to become. Surrender is not defeat. It is the bold act of opening your fist to receive a greater force. When you clutch at outcomes too tightly, you lock yourself into a narrow groove of expectation. You become the paddle gripping the raft as it thrashes in rapids, trying to steer every wave instead of moving with the current. But when you loosen your grip, when you surrender, the water carries you into uncharted channels of possibility, swirling you toward breakthroughs that rigid control could never reach. Consider the dancer who lets go of each muscle's conscious pull, allowing their body to be guided by rhythm rather than reaction. In that moment of surrender, the choreography becomes effortless, as though an unseen energy is animating every turn and leap. You too have an invisible current that flows beneath the surface of your everyday awareness, a stream of intuition, synchronicity, and guidance. Yet it only emerges when you step out of the way, when you release your need to micromanage every detail and trust that something wiser than your small self is orchestrating the next movement. Surrender begins with a simple acknowledgement. I do not have to know exactly how this will unfold. It is a permission slip to your soul to explore the edges of what feels safe. You might hesitate at first. Uncertainty can feel like a precipice, but each step forward deepens your faith in the unseen path. You start to notice signs you once overlooked, a chance conversation, a book that falls open to the right page, a sudden shift in mood that offers clarity. These are the breadcrumbs of divine flow, guiding you toward doors you never dreamed existed. When you practice surrender, you transform resistance into receptivity. The same energy you wasted on anxiety and forceful pushing now propels you effortlessly forward. Challenges become invitations. A roadblock sparks creativity. A delay gifts you time to refine your vision. A criticism reveals an unexamined belief. Rather than fighting inertia, you ride its momentum and allow it to spin you into new orbits of growth. To cultivate surrender, begin each day with a brief ritual of release. Close your eyes, place your hands over your heart, and envision dropping every expectation, every should, and every fear into an invisible well. Feel the weight lift from your shoulders as you step into alignment with something vaster. Then move through your day as though you are a leaf on the breeze, open, responsive, and trusting. Surrender is the portal to supernatural movement. Through it, you discover that life is not a battlefield to conquer, but a dance to join. When you yield to the sacred currents at play, you find yourself swept into experiences that surpass your greatest imaginings. Open your hand, let go, and watch as the universe carries you on wings of possibility. Transformation is never handed to you on a silver platter. It demands a cost, a relinquishing of the familiar, a surrender of comfort, and a willingness to embrace discomfort as your constant companion. Just as a caterpillar must dissolve into liquid form before emerging as a butterfly, you too must be willing to let parts of yourself collapse, so that something greater can take flight. Imagine you're climbing a mountain. With each step upward, the air grows thinner, your muscles tremble, and your lungs burn. There is a moment when you must decide. Do you turn around and retreat to the valley's warmth, or do you press onward through the ache? The very act of elevation requires you to trade the ease of the lowlands for the challenge of the ascent. Transformation works the same way. You shed habits that have long defined you, perhaps a steady paycheck in exchange for the uncertainty of a passion project, or the security of an old relationship to make space for a new one. These sacrifices sting, but they are the currency you pay to ascend. Discomfort is not a bug in the system. It is the system. When you push your boundaries, whether by learning a new skill, voicing a hard truth, or taking a leap of faith, you inevitably enter a zone of unease. You may feel exposed, vulnerable, or even foolish. You might second-guess yourself, tempted by the siren call of safety. But within that tension lies the very mechanism of growth. Your muscles strengthen under tension. Your character deepens under strain. The friction of discomfort polishes you until you shine. Normalization is key. Rather than viewing sacrifice as a punitive penalty, reframe it as a sacred rite of passage. Each sleepless night spent honing your craft, each awkward conversation where you assert your worth, each moment of solitude in which you confront old insecurities. They are not signs you're on the wrong path. They are the toll booths on the highway to your truest self. Accept them as integral, unavoidable milestones. To journey through sacrifice with grace, cultivate a mindset of gratitude. Celebrate the small victories, the breakthrough after hours of practice, the clarity gained from a difficult conversation, the resilience forged during a lonely season. Keep a journal of these wins so you can look back and see how each sacrifice has propelled you forward, brick by brick. Finally, remember that sacrifice is not about loss alone. It's about exchange. What you give up, the comfort of certainty, the illusion of control, the cocoon of old identities, you trade for vision, freedom, and authenticity. Transformation exacts its price, but the reward is your elevated life, spacious, vibrant, and entirely your own. Embrace the discomfort, honor the sacrifice, and know that on the other side lies the person you were always meant to become. Small fixes feel safe. A patch here, a tweak there. It's familiar and feels like progress. But true transformation demands more than superficial mending. This isn't repair. It's reconstruction. It asks you to dismantle the broken parts entirely so you can build something new from the ground up. Imagine a house battered by storms. You could nail on a new shingle and call it a day, but the underlying framework remains weakened. Over time, cracks reappear and leaks resurface. Reconstruction means tearing out the rotted beams, replacing the compromised supports, and reimagining the blueprint so the home stands strong for generations. Your inner world deserves the same bold overhaul. First, acknowledge what can't simply be patched over. Those habits that no longer serve you, the beliefs that keep you small, the unspoken wounds that whisper doubts in your ear. Pointing a temporary spotlight on them won't banish them forever. You must shine a floodlight into every corner, uncover hidden damage, and be willing to clear it away completely. Next, invite vision into the void you create. When the old structure is down, you're left with open space and infinite possibility. Sketch your new blueprint. What values will your foundation hold? Which principles will your walls embody? How will your rebuilt self support the highest version of your life? Don't reattach the same windows. Choose new vantage points that let in fresh light. Then begin the build. Take decisive action on one element at a time. Lay your cornerstone of self-compassion. Frame your walls with accountability. Roof your efforts with consistent practice. You may wobble. Reconstruction is a messy process. Celebrate each milestone, the day you set a new boundary, the moment you replace a negative narrative with a constructive one, the breath you take after letting go of an old identity. Reconstruction isn't easy. It's grueling, sometimes lonely work. Yet with every beam you raise and every brick you place, you step closer to a self that's not merely fixed, but fully realized. Let go of quick fixes. Embrace the transformative power of starting anew. This is your invitation to rebuild, to rise from the rubble stronger than ever before. You've spent so long waiting for the right moment that life is quietly slipping by. Meanwhile, deep within you, there's an ember of untapped possibility, an unhurried revolution waiting for your spark. The truth is this: you are lagging behind the very potential you carry. Every day you hesitate, every dream you shelve for later, you fall further behind the most important race of all, the one to become the fullest expression of yourself. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain you were born to climb. The summit is your highest calling. The talents you've yet to unleash, the voices you've yet to share, the impact you're destined to make. But instead of taking that first step, you find excuses to linger in the valley. Comfortable routines, small but deceptive certainties, fears dressed up as caution. With every sunrise, you hit snooze on your own greatness, and the path grows steeper, the climb more arduous. This isn't a gentle nudge. It's a summons to urgent, soul-level responsibility. Your latent gifts aren't a luxury. They're a duty. The world needs the unique light you carry, and your own life demands that you step into its radiance before time dims the contours of your dreams. Don't wait for permission, praise, or perfect conditions. Those are illusions that delay your destiny. Take stock of the life you're living right now. Where are you playing small? In which corners have you accepted mediocrity as safety? Pinpoint the areas where fear is dictating your decisions, projects unfinished, conversations unspoken, risks you've refused to take. Write them down. Look at them squarely. These are the gates you must unlock if you are to catch up with your potential. Then, commit. Make a pact with yourself today. I am responsible for my own becoming. Treat that promise as you would any sacred contract. Carve out time in your calendar for the pursuits that set your heart on fire. Tell a trusted friend about your commitment. They can hold you accountable when inertia creeps in. Each small action, writing a page, making a cold call, rehearsing a speech, builds momentum. They are not trivial. They are the bricks of your emancipation. Urgency doesn't mean panic. It means clarity and fierce dedication. Feel the pulse of your own heartbeat as the timer ticking toward the life you're meant to lead. When resistance rises, remind yourself, I'm not running out of time. I'm choosing to align with my highest self right now. Let that truth burn away complacency. You've been trailing behind your own potential long enough. The summit beckons. Answer its call with unwavering resolve and step forward into the expansive life that awaits you. Alignment begins as a quiet whisper within your soul, a subtle recalibration of values, beliefs, and intentions that you may barely notice at first. You might catch yourself pausing before reacting, choosing compassion over criticism, or sensing an inner nudging toward your truest desires. These internal shifts are the first shoots of realignment taking root beneath the surface, invisible to everyone else but you. As you nourish these sprouts, through consistent self-reflection, daily rituals, and honest conversations with yourself, their roots grow stronger. You begin to think differently, speak differently, and act from a place of authenticity rather than habit. Your internal landscape becomes a fertile ground for integrity, purpose, and clarity so that your identity feels more like a well-tended garden than a patchwork of forced roles. Once that inner foundation is secure, the world around you cannot help but respond. People start mirroring the respect you've learned to give yourself. Colleagues notice your steady confidence and entrust you with greater responsibilities. Friends are drawn to your genuine warmth and reciprocate with deeper connections. Even strangers sense your grounded presence and greet you with unexpected kindness. These shifts aren't coincidences. They are the magnetic echo of your upgraded identity. Your environment transforms in kind. Projects that once stagnated gain momentum as you approach them with renewed vision. Opportunities that felt out of reach now land in your lap because you're presenting yourself as someone who can receive and steward them wisely. Obstacles dissolve more readily, not because life has become trouble-free, but because you've developed the inner alignment to navigate challenges with grace rather than resistance. In essence, alignment is the secret architecture of change. You don't rearrange your outer world first and hope your inner world follows. Instead, you cultivate integrity, purpose, and self-trust within, and watch your surroundings reshape themselves around that new center. When your roots run deep, every branch you extend blossoms into a reflection of your authentic self, and the landscape of your life blooms in glorious alignment with who you truly are. You've tasted the familiar comforts of normal, the routines, the landscapes, the versions of yourself you once knew so well. But your soul did not stir for mere restoration. You're not meant to slip back into old patterns or patch the worn edges of your past life. You're meant to be reborn. Rebirth is not a gentle nudge. It's a radical unraveling and reweaving of every thread that defined you. It asks you to step through a threshold of loss, the dissolution of outdated identities, the severing of habits that tether you to yesterday, and the grieving of what once felt safe. This unmaking can feel like staring into a void where the walls you built have fallen and the landmarks you trusted have vanished. Yet within that emptiness lies the crucible of your emergence. To be reborn, you must accept the full cost. The sleepless nights wrestling with uncertainty, the ache of releasing relationships that no longer serve your highest path, and the disorientation of living between worlds, no longer who you were, not yet who you will become. Each act of surrender carries a seed of beauty, clarity unclouded by old expectations, freedom unburdened by past failures, and creativity unbound by familiar scripts. Embrace the paradox. Loss is your invitation to deeper gain. With every layer you shed, you unveil new capacities. Resilience forged in fire, compassion born of vulnerability, and vision sharpened by uncharted possibilities. You are not repairing a broken vessel. You are stepping into an entirely new design, one that can hold your expanding purpose and untamed dreams. Remember the phoenix. It does not return to its ashes. It rises anew, brilliant and unrecognizable. You too are called to rise, stripped of former limits, aflame with newfound essence. Let go of normal as your benchmark. Open your eyes to the wonder of your own becoming. This is your rebirth, magnificent in its cost, breathtaking in its beauty, and wholly, gloriously yours.